Hey, everybody. So I don't know if you've noticed this from the show that we make. I'm a lazy person. I'm also a little overworked. But one of the things I ran into was I feel like the notes that we've been giving you, I'm starting to repeat myself. And also, we ran into some that were, let's say, complex to handle.
Yeah.
So
also completely inaccessible the way that you do them.
Yeah. But what I'm talking about is like there were a couple of them where I was like running up to them going like, fuck, I honestly like I need to get like guest input. I need to figure out how we're going to do this because
it's not like being a DM.
Yeah, it's a very different feeling.
Like you are the DM, but it's not like you're bringing the whole thing to the table. You're working in conjunction with the guests, sometimes in conjunction with me too.
And the more we hit on sort of like sensitive topics, like we recorded the Golem episode pretty recently.
What were you going to write? Yeah.
Yeah. We're dealing with something that is, I know is very, very important to people. But at the end of the day, I'm not Jewish. I don't know what's going to touch on things inappropriately. I want to be able to talk to our guests. So this has been a long preamble to say, we're going to try to move into call this sort of DM commentary as opposed to the notes.
Terrible name. We're not calling it that.
I'm just saying I'm not saying name it that on the fucking Patreon. Yeah, I'm saying that agreed. I need something to refer to it as right now to explain what I'm doing.
Sure. And I need something good. Yeah.
Call it fucking audio DMs notes. I don't give a shit.
Even worse. We're just going to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But with our terribly named audio DMs notes, with our very temporarily named audio DMs
incredibly
notes.
Temporary.
Yes.
I figure we could at least talk through the encounter and what we were doing.
With the Couatl?
And some of the decisions we made. Yeah. With the Couatl and basically going forward into season 2, we'll try them out this way, like as we can kind of listen back and hear the edits and see what we basically, is there anything we would do differently or choices we made along the way? You see where I'm coming from here?
Oh, I've got one big change I would have made. Yeah.
I can't have written this stuff ahead of time because legitimately, so this is fun tidbit number 1 for behind the scenes. I was terrified walking into this episode.
Yeah, it was a tougher one. Agreed.
Because we have the twofold thing of like the Couatl was one of the sort of more culturally sensitive episodes. We had to kind of take a beat and think about how we were going to do this, especially because one of the only places I've ever seen a Couatl use is Chult, a hotbed for doing things poorly.
Mm-hmm. Yes, agreed.
So I was a little concerned about it going in. Factor into that the fact that like we have had a lot of really brilliant writers on the show. And then there's just a weird bonus sort of gravitas Carlos pulls from being like real Star Trek TV writer where I'm like, totally. I now have to tell this motherfucker a story?
Yeah. Yes. And we're going to talk about how to structure a plot, Carlos. And Carlos like, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
yeah.
But there have been plenty of
lovely
guests
individual,
in that.
Perfectly kind enough.
Carlos was fucking phenomenal.
Amazing. And came in with a real firm understanding, definitely did his homework. Like some guests do their homework. We don't ask them to, but you always know which ones do. And Carlos definitely did.
No, it's a small part. The larger part is obviously just general cultural sensitivity, but it's part of why we make sure that like, if we're going to talk about a cultural monster, we cast appropriately.
Right.
It's because we don't want our guests to have to fucking go out and read a Wikipedia article.
Right.
Like, come in and talk about the monsters you like.
And even though we did cast appropriately, we also, for this one, went the extra step and found a real cultural expert. Like you're not going to get more of an expert on this than a classical Maya archaeologist.
A Latino classical Maya. There's a lot of classical Maya archaeologists that are like still a little... Yeah.
Totally fair. Absolutely fair. But the fact that we found one with, both a personal, a cultural heritage and a professional, a cultural tie to it, I think really helped make that episode. I wasn't sure how that was going to work out when I first did it, but I had models, mainly Radio Lab 99% in.
I could hear it in the fucking ringtone thing you picked. Like that was
totally. It was a complete.
I heard it and I was like, oh man, I wonder what fucking Radio Lab show Aram is giving a hand job to right now.
100%. But it is a really good way to trick, because like
it worked.
So when we first did this, when we first put the show on, I didn't have a middle break ad. I just had a transition scene from the talk part to the AP.
I also had to fight you on that for a couple, because you kept forgetting to do it, and we would just go from like a sentence would end and then I'd start narration.
Yeah, well, I'd have like a little audio transition. There'd be like an oh shit or something.
Hey, Will, if you're at the right Patreon level to hear this, thank you for letting me know when I had to yell it or wrong.
Yeah, 100%. No, it did help. Plus, building in the middle ad break helps when we break out the show for future things, right? I wanted a transition point, but not a second firm one, because we couldn't have a firm transition point, then have a firm transition point. It would feel clumsy. I needed an elegant way to transition us from that to that. And maybe the first time it might be a little confusing, but people will go, oh. And then every time they hear it afterwards, they'll know exactly what we've done.
I think it worked out really well. And Alejandro is fucking phenomenal.
Lovely person. Yeah. Yeah, just a great dude with a lot of, and so excited to share what he knows.
Let's talk about the adventure a little bit. Because basically what we came in with was, basically the only area where I can think of to put this as Chult, but I'm not entirely happy to do that. And I kept coming back.
We never said it was Chult. We never said it was.
It is.
Oh, it is? We actually said that?
The big door that would unleash Dendar the Night Serpent that's in the Valley of Ash or Valley of Cinders or whatever.
We never said it was Dendar. Oh, we did say it was the Night Serpent. Okay,
I also said the Valley of whichever fire detritus it is, Cinder or Ash, I can't remember.
Those are actual real things.
Embers. It was Valley of Embers. Shit.
Nope, fair. Okay, those things actually exist, yeah.
Yeah. But no, that was the thing, is I came into that going like, hey, listen, Carlos, here's what I have. There's a big scary door in the middle of Chult, and it makes sense to have someone sort of guarding it.
Right. Or at least acting as a tour guide.
He took that in such an interesting direction. The idea of having the Owlin be someone who guides people to it, specifically to let them make a choice, is such like a interesting, like, good God move. To be like, no, free will is important. It's important for me to take you to this place where you could make a literally fucking apocalyptic decision.
Right, but I trust you to make the right one, yeah.
Because if you play that differently, like, that could be framed as a very sort of healing experience to realize that, like, yeah, this thing has the power to wipe the slate clean and take away this horrible thing that happened to you. But it would destroy everything. You need to recognize that loss is loss, and, all that shit. Like, it's a very interesting story.
The god had like the high end, like the real high-minded plan, right? Where the god's like, we'll let them choose, and it will prove that goodness is brought into the world. And all of his angels were like, oh yeah, absolutely, God, absolutely. Make sure there's a fucking Couatl down there. They wanted to, they knew how people were going to be. Like, okay, God, what a great idea. Yeah, we really believe in it. Put a fucking Couatl down there. Make sure every person has an escort.
It also plays into that whole little frame, right? Because like one of the things they put in Chult is specifically old gods, occasionally dead gods, murdered gods. Like there are a lot of sort of, for lack of a better word, defunct gods in Chult as it was written. And Dendar specifically is, I think, technically a primordial. Like it is an old thing, older than the gods, powerful enough that nothing can really kill her. She just sits there and consumes nightmares. For the record, that is also like, that's part of why it came to mind for me, is I knew that door was in there from reading up for like another campaign I was running. And Dendar's whole shit is the Night Serpent feeds on nightmares. And if you have a nightmare that you suddenly wake up from and then you can't remember, that's Dendar.
That is the one place where I think we should have. So I think everything went great. Right? If we're talking about the adventure part, I think we missed a big opportunity, a huge opportunity. When I got bit and put to sleep, and we were both in the dream space, that's when the serpent should have reached out and struck. While we were both in the dream space and then could fight it together while we were dreaming.
That's cool. But at that point in the adventure, the reason you were asleep, the reason you got attacked was because you had decided already to side with the Night Serpent. You were trying to open a door to the plane where death lives.
Right.
That's part of the whole Forgotten Realms shtick, is Dendar is sleeping like right outside of the city of the dead.
The worst thing the Couatl would want is a passage in, right? And out of desperation, it puts you to sleep, but doesn't anticipate that that's also a path in.
That is true. But you've already picked the Night Serpent's side, right? Like, at this point, Carlos's story, the way that it's running, and I'm not running for you. You're fucking
No, I get you.
ancillary.
I get you. But that's why my character switches sides, because then they see the Night Serpent for what it is in the nightmare.
My concern with that is that heel turn or face turn. That face turn is not something I can necessarily assume is going to happen. And at that point, I'm sending I think a challenge 5 monster, and I think you were like level 7 or 8,
right.
up against something more powerful than a god, and I can fluff my way around that. But
it could have been a aspect of it because we were in the dream world, not the real world.
Now I have to piece together the stats, and now the focal point of the adventure is the Night Serpent.
Yes, agreed. Look, for what the story was, it was perfect. It was a story of choice and inevitable loss. Like, he was going to lose something that day, no matter what. It ended up being himself, right? If I was making this into a D&D module,
yes,
I would rewrite it
That's
to battle with the Night
true.
Serpent.
But this is, again, one of those things that it's part of why these notes got increasingly difficult, is because at the end of the day, I'm not writing an adventure. I'm not writing a module. I'm barely writing a full story. I'm writing something to feature that monster. And you're right. If I were doing something larger and trying to build out an overarching thing, especially because since you were at like I said, something around level 5, I would replace you with a level 5 party.
Right.
Having that be a beat early in the campaign where they get exposed to no. This is what Dendar is. That would be phenomenal. But then it's going to lead into a campaign that is specifically about Dendar. And it wasn't. It was about Carlos. It was about the Couatl.
I'm already looking at the monsters now as players because we've been using them as players, kind of. And so now I'm thinking of them as a party, but that's not what we should be doing. We have to still focus on them as the monster.
Trying to thread that needle between we're making a show that has to be fun for everybody, and we have to feel like we're featuring the monster, and then trying to write these DM's notes in a way that is going to be useful to someone writing a regular campaign starts to get really hard.
It doesn't work really, because you're basically trying to repurpose what we did for that cause. If you're really DMing, here's what you take this idea, then repurpose it. We should save that for when we write the book. You're doing too much work for when we should just be saving it for the book. You're right.
But that's also a thing that I think functions a little nicer in these conversations, because I am always running like that. And I know it's something that I've had to fight you on. You are always running an adventure, right?
I've tied all these characters into the world together.
And you're wrong. There is not an overarching world. Right.
There is an overarching world. I've already proven there is. We haven't recorded. You can't stop me.
There are intersections, and not all of them interconnect, and some of them are just random bullshit.
All of them somehow interconnect. Every single one of them has at least one connection, and I can prove them to you because I've been making them.
I know, and I've been ignoring you. Because at the end of the day...
right.
No, it does, because I'm the DM.
We just discussed how you're not. We just literally said you weren't.
No, I said I wasn't running like a standard adventure. I wasn't running this like a normal DM. I am still very much the DM, and you are at best a puppet. We're going to try these out for this season. And, folks who are getting these, tell me if you like them. Because at the end of the day, you're throwing money at us. You're helping us out in a fairly major way. I want to make sure you feel like you're getting something for helping out.
Absolutely.
If you like the notes better, I'll figure something out, guys.
He won't. So this is what you're stuck with. But if you really, really hate it, please tell us.
Seriously. But yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. If you're running this as an adventure, the dream thing is good. Bring in Dendar that way. But otherwise, like I said, that one just played out so organically, that it was just like, this person is looking for a way to get the dead back. And the fastest way to get to the dead in Chult is there is literally a door that will let the apocalypse loose, but also opens to the place where the recently dead are.
One thing I loved about that so much is that Carlos kept having his owl and going, well, are you sure? Like, what do you hear? And I listened and I was like, well, I hear death and magic. And that's exactly what I expect to hear, because they're going to revive my people. And he's like, oh shit, no. That's not what I want you to hear.
That was very pointedly what I was going for, is like, my goal was getting you to make the bad decision. And I know that you're like on side for all of this. So I knew you were gonna, right?
But you wanted to give me real reasons to latch on to. Yeah. I mean, yes, am I a simple creature that can be, guided by a flame? But isn't it nice to know that you can just light the lighter and have me come? And I'm right there to give you whatever story you want. Exactly. Like, right on cue.
No, that's, I make fun of you a lot because it's easy, because you're a mess of a person. But I do need to give you credit. Like, we're playing this off like it's you being a dope. You are making those conscious decisions. I know you're seeing what I'm putting in front of you and running with me. So like,
when I'm dumb, I'm usually dumb for story. Usually. Sometimes I'm just dumb. But a lot of times I'm choosing to be dumb for story.
There have been times where I've been like trying to lay the tracks down in front of you, and you've been like, oh man, I should be careful. I'm going to trip over that.
There's also been times like early on when I was nervous and like a little bit distracted, where things would happen and I would just be completely oblivious to it. I've gotten better.
The episodes that are out are not in release order, or not in recording order. Mm-hmm. And there are a couple where like I can hear that I was newer to this.
Totally.
Making the adjustment to running for a podcast, and specifically running for like 2 people. Hell, even the Banshee, like Orla was a magnificent guest. I did not do like the legwork I should have, or let me rephrase that. I didn't build out that encounter in a way that I'm happy with. Like, I look back on it and it feels very like, it's,
there's some guys in the woods, they're, whatever.
Yeah,
right.
Even that setup, like knowing what I know now, being a better DM, like, because I said, writing for entertainment of a listener rather than entertainment of a player.
You wrote a D&D scene.
Yeah.
You wrote an encounter.
I wrote an encounter that's going to happen at hour 2 of the game that you signed up for at Gen Con.
You even made sure there were some extra woodsmen, so there was a party.
Yeah. And now I look back on it and I'm like, fuck me.
When we first did this show, we expected it to be a lot more killy, right?
Yeah.
It was going to be a lot more murdery. So we needed...
Fucking Diana. God damn it, Dylan.
It's hard to say Dylan because we think we're talking about you, but super Dylan. Better Dylan. Right.
By far the most difficult part of the Newlywed game that we did, and that includes having to see the choices you made over the course of that game.
I made some really choices. Oh, I was so happy that game.
I know, it was a lot of fun, but also I carried that too.
The only thing that mattered to me that entire one was that when they were like, if Aram got lost in the woods, what would he leave behind him to follow you like breadcrumbs? And you went, weed. It's like, yeah, weed. I was so happy for us.
I know you were. We just hit a point in the middle where you were trying to play into the bit, but I was trying to play into the bit, and that intersected in a bad way. But anyway,
it did. It was a little off. But
we're talking about our show now.
Yeah, exactly. It's about our show now, not yours, Dylan.
Yeah,
other Dylan.
God, trying to muscle your way in here, big powerful man.
Please, the second that like either of us could be replaced by Dylan, the show would get better.
Drop of a hat. Drop of a shitty toque. Moral of the story, Couatl Adventure was fun, Carlos was magnificent, and Dendar the Night Serpent is basically the only good thing in Chult.
Yep, agreed, 100%. Well, no, you know what? One of the things I liked about Chult was how careful they were to describe the buildings as colorful, as like in a warmer climate, there's naturally more color and there's more like, outdoor treatments and decorations. I liked all that part. Like there were some parts in that Chult book I liked. The rest of it is pretty much hot fucking garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
That's all. A little bit of praise and a lot of hate. What you've come to know from Kill Every Monster. Thank you for listening, audience.
Love you guys.
For more information about us, notes for each episode, and ways you can help support the show, head over to killeverymonster.com.
If any of the ideas we've discussed on the show have sparked some of your own, tell us about it on Twitter at KEM Podcast. You'll find me at DJ Malenfant and Aram at Aram Vardian.
For ad-free episodes, early releases, bonus episodes, print-ready maps, Dylan's DM notes, and my character sheets from each encounter, head over to patreon.com/killeverymonster. You can also listen to ad-free episodes and bonus content by subscribing to the show on Apple Podcasts.
Our theme intro and many of the sound effects you hear in the show were created by BattleBards. Check them out at battlebards.com.
This episode was produced by Aram Vartian and Dylan Malenfant. I also did the editing.
And we'll see you next time
For Kill Every Monster. This show was produced and edited by Dead Ghost Productions. Find out more about us and all the shows we make at deadghostpro.com.